Greetings, everyone. I know my videos are perfect, okay? Because nobody does better videos than me. Nobody.
Nobody knows more about taxes than I do, and income than I do.
Nobody knows more about construction than I do.
Nobody knows more about campaign finance than I do.
But I was thinking, how can I make my videos even better? How can I spice them up a little bit? In the last week or so, I have traveled across the entire flat globe in order to find that one secret ingredient. The ingredient to make a perfect video. And purely by accident, I stumbled upon a perfect ingredient when I saw a handsome stud named Ritchie Herron. So I asked him, would you like to make a video with me? And then he said, piss off, mate. Fortunately, he agreed, after I took his cat hostage. So, ladies and gentlemen, grab something to eat and enjoy the longest video I have ever made on this channel. Please welcome Ritchie Herron.
There you go. Hey.
Yeah, howdy, mate.
How you doing? Good to see you again.
I'm good. Everything's hunky-dory, you know.
Yeah.
What about you?
Oh, I'm fine. I've just noticed, I think this has got a filter on or something because my face is not that smooth. That is ridiculous.
I mean, you look really red.
Yeah, I know, right? What the
Yeah.
hell's going on? I'm not this
It's
red.
reason-
You've met me in person.
Like, that
think-
doesn't
I
look
think it's
like
his
you because
camera.
I know how pale you are. You're basically as pale as me.
Yeah, I'm pale
Yeah,
as
like,
fuck, mate. Like,
Bunch
this
of
is ridiculous.
zombie emo boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zombie emo boy.
So everybody, I'm with Ritchie Herron, and Ritchie, everybody knows you, everybody loves you, so no introductions needed. Anyway, thanks for a lovely time in Aylesbury, by the way.
Yeah, it was lush.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that.
you know, it's one thing, and I didn't think I told you, but the steak you ordered at the pub. Yeah. Did you know I really regretted ordering that chicken, right?
Oh yeah,
When I saw your
yeah.
steak.
Oh, that steak was. Oh, it was
Yeah.
nice. It was very nice.
Yeah,
It was
like-
very nice.
I proposed you to try some of my chicken, just so I thought I would get to try some of your steak. But you were like, no, I don't want it, you know. And I wanted to be polite, so I didn't just like jump in and grab your meat.
Oh, there's a euphemism there. Sorry, can't pronounce my words today. And my hair's in my face really badly. At least I've turned off the smooth filter. I'm still red. I'm not this red, by the way. I'm like this color, but for some reason, my camera is making me look like I'm very red.
Yeah. I mean, your hands look perfect. So
normal. Yeah.
So that's why I'm really happy that you have blessed us with your presence, Ritchie. And yeah, I already feel blessed. Yeah. So to those who for some crazy reason don't know you, could you give it's like a very short summary of your story with transitioning? And
Yep. I transitioned medically because, you know, people are like, oh, I identified as trans and when I was 10 years old, and you're like, oh, fuck off. You know what I mean? It's meaningless how we identified years ago. What matters is what did you do like with that, you know? And what happened with me was I medically transitioned at the age of 26. I was on the GnRH anti-androgen, which I will always butcher the name. I'm always going to mispronounce it. It's like goserelin. Like all anti-androgens, and people need to understand this, are the same thing. It's all the same thing. It's just brands that you're paying for. It's like paracetamol. Like, you know, there's a million different brands of paracetamol, but there's only one way to make it, right? Unless you want to add loads of caffeine into it and shit. Anyway, by the by. So I was on the anti-androgen for 4.5 years up until I had my surgery, which was the same as yours. And if your audience know you, you'll know what surgery that is. And those who don't know, it's a penile inversion with scrotal graft, which sounds as horrific as I've just said, and it sounds a lot more severe than saying bottom surgery or sex reassignment surgery, SRS, GRS, all these stupid fucking apologies for swearing, that might get you
No,
demonetized.
you can swear as much as you want to this channel.
Excellent,
So
super.
there's no rule for that. Fuck the rules. I mean, you're talking to an anarchist. Come on, man.
Anarchist, okay. So I was on the anti-androgen, and then I had the surgery, and but also started the estrogen in about 2015, very late 2014, but it was a very low dose. It was shit dose as well, and it didn't do anything at first. And then I went on the gels, and the gels certainly had an impact. But really, the thing is with transition is, if you like can look the part before transitioning, you are going to look the part after. And I could, when I was younger, I went through a phase of getting very depressed and overweight and stuff, and my body weight has went up and down for years. But I think I spent more time being chunky than not. And it's a lie that that you get much development on hormones. You don't. You get softer skin. That's it. That's what most people get, the softer skin. You know what I mean? But your facial structure is your facial structure. You might get some fat redistribution in your body, which I've got like a, what I would describe it as like a crushed hourglass figure, right? So it's like not like a normal hourglass. It's very, very like condensed. And it's like, it's very, very minimal what the hormones actually do. I did have breast growth, but I've always had gynecomastia, which is breast tissue in males, and that just got very, very bad, like on estrogen. And then I had the surgery 2018, and I went through this period of, because I kind of regretted it instantly. I like straight away I was like, oh fuck, like as soon as I was awake I was like, shit, this was a fucking mistake. But I wrestled with the idea that it would get better, like things will improve, it's just early days and all that sort of shit. And that's what I try to believe. And then I brought up about 3 months after surgery, I brought up to my gender therapist that was experiencing regret. And they were like, you're not experiencing regret. You've got really bad OCD. And I was like, all right, then. I've got really bad OCD. So I believed them for a bit. And then I got discharged.
Did you just take it for granted when they said that? Or did you question it at all?
I was really angry at them at first because I wanted it to make sense. But it just didn't make sense, that explanation, because I know what obsessions feel like. So, for instance, in terms of, if you want to see an obsession in action, watch how many podcasts and shit I did when I first went out as detrans last year. It was insane. It was like 40 in the space of a month. That is obsession.
Okay.
That is like crazy. Like, I need to get the story. I need to tell everyone. I need to do this. I need to do that. But the regret wasn't like I need it. It was just like, it wasn't a thought in my mind. It was like something weighing on my heart. Like, oh my God, I've fucked up here so badly, and I regret this. And I could feel it. And that's how I knew that wasn't OCD, because it was in my gut. It was in my heart. It wasn't a rumination that was in my head that was like swimming around. It was coming from within. And that's how I was like, this isn't OCD. This is just, all I was trying to do was say, I've fucked up. I've made a mistake. I regret this. But they wouldn't let me say that. They wouldn't let me do that. So I was robbed from regret even. And that caused great conflict for many years. I say many years, it was about 4 years. Trying to cope, it wasn't all terrible, but I was definitely really, really trying to cope. And then lockdown came, and I spent so much time inside on like video calls and camera and like watching recordings back of meetings and stuff like that, just because it was part of the job back then. And all of a sudden I had this very rude awakening to an unfiltered view of how I looked, how I sounded, how I moved, and you know, and it was very like, ah, God, this just all feels so fake. And it just started unraveling. And I was looking on places like Kiwi Farms. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but Kiwi
Mm,
Farms, you've not?
no, I
Oh
don't
my
think so. No.
goodness. At the moment, it's off the normal internet. You've got to use a Tor browser to get onto it. But it's basically a discussion site about internet
Okay.
personalities.
Yeah. You
So,
see,
and those,
I'm not very familiar with the internet, to be honest. Like,
right.
I am a technological dinosaur
You're
of sorts.
basically a millennial boomer in a way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In a
Yeah.
way, even though I'm really interested in technology from like a scientific and a philosophical view, I can't like wrap my head around the internet and all of its elements and its culture. To be honest, I'm sort of living under the stone. I mean, I didn't know what a meme was until what 2016.
My goodness. My goodness. I
Yeah, because
remember.
I read books. I don't spend that much time on the internet. You know.
Well, I've been using the internet since the 90s because sad life, right? But I remember this thing. Do you know what Crazy Frog is? Have you ever heard of Crazy
Yeah, yeah,
Frog?
yeah. Of
Da da
course.
dee da dee da dee dee. I
Mm.
remember that when it was a meme of a racing car of somebody just going ba da ding 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 ding, and then it turned into Crazy Frog for some reason, selling
Right. Okay.
ringtones, and then the song came out. Anyway, that was a meme in the 90s. I remember, like, I've been memeing for years, son, you know.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but that's
Shit
interesting how, like,
posting. Shit
yeah,
posting since 1998.
exactly. Exactly. About then, yeah, about 98. No, let's see. I would say about 98. Yeah, that would be about right. 11-ish, I would have been. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. It's like internet was still a pretty young thing
Oh
around that
God, yeah.
time.
No one had any fucking idea what it was capable of, what was on
Exactly.
it, how it worked, the people who were on it as well, because also back then there was, you see, a lot of people don't appreciate this. Pop-up hell was like a thing. There was no ad blockers, and it was just porn pop-ups all the time, wherever you went, no matter which website it was. There was, it was just everywhere. And it
Mm.
felt like some sort of MK Ultra experiment where it was just like zapping people, or maybe it was this unintentional design, but I don't know. I reckon that's just warped generations of people. And,
Mm.
using the internet and all that time, I've seen a lot of shit. On all these discussion sites where they do like gore and all sorts. And
Yeah.
man,
Quite familiar with those, to be honest.
I'm definitely traumatized from the shit I've seen online. 100%.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I know people are like all quick to blame pornography, but I think pornography was part of it, but a very, very it's like not as major as the pieces they would like to think. I think a lot of it was all the desensitization content. Like, I don't know why we were watching the execution videos and stuff in back then,
Like
and
cartel
yeah, all the
and stuff
horrible,
like that.
horrible stuff on like
Mm.
Live Leak, and I don't know why we did it, but we did, and I don't know. I think all that sort of thing just has an impact on people like over a period of time.
No,
But
definitely. I when I was a kid, and to be honest, when I was on the internet, I didn't even know what to do there. Because it wasn't something that was super prevalent in society. There weren't any sites that were popular like uh, YouTube or Twitter or Facebook or anything like that. So I would just go in the internet and spend
Charles.
5 minutes there. I was like, this shit is boring. And then I would go out and ride a bicycle or play a video game because that was so much more engaging than being on the internet. And looking how much things have changed and how younger generations now they grow up with social media and like discussion forums. So a lot of topics that were very hidden for us are on the surface at this point, right? And pornography is like one of those examples. And I see so many kids who start watching porn at the age of 9 or 10. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think that what we watch in form of pornography at a young age shapes our own tastes when it comes to sex life?
Yeah, I definitely think it has an impact in the same way that a child who is exposed to indecent behaviors around them has an impact. It's just because it's through a screen doesn't mean that messages aren't being interpreted, wires aren't being crossed. As a whole, I am so anti-pornography, like not just because of the industry and how it paints a very unrealistic view of sex, and I don't think it's helpful, and I don't think it's liberating either, but it's also quite, there's no, you don't have to go too many dividing lines to get into the realms of human trafficking when it comes to pornography, right? Or an abuse. There's lots of horror stories out there that we're made to believe are just these fringe examples, but they're not. But as on a developing young mind, I think that certainly crossed a lot of wires for me too. And one of the things was I was so terrified of the fact I was gay, like terrified. Like the very thought of it, or of just being that way as a grown up, was like, God, I just didn't want that future whatsoever. So I was going to do anything I could to undo that. And one of the things that I tried to do with not much success was watch heterosexual pornography, right? And try and make myself attracted to the women in it and not focus on the men, and you know what I mean? But I think in some fucked up sense, what's kind of happened in my little very absolutist brain at those young ages was, to please a man, I just need to be a woman, sort of thing. And I think that's where there's like this sort of crossover. This miswiring is one of the miswirings, because I don't think it's just this one event. I think there were lots and lots of events that accumulated to this. But overall, I don't think it's healthy. I don't even think it's good for adults, to be honest. Some people are utterly consumed by it and have horrific addictions. And, you know, I don't think it's a good thing generally. Personally, I think it's a negative at our society.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm 100% with you on that. And before I move on to next question, before I forget, there's something interesting you said about starting to identify as trans at the age of 10. And as it's crazy that, we assume that a 10-year-old's gender identity will remain the same throughout the rest of their life when they identify as something else than what they actually are, considering that if you look back at when you were 10, how many of those same opinions do you still hold? And how many of those views of yourself do you still hold as a 36-year-old? Probably
Yeah,
not
that's right.
many. So I think this whole
I
idea
can't
that
even
this identity is
remember.
static is absolutely fucking insane.
I think no, I don't know if you've seen the videos of those trans kids, and I hate that term, but there was a kid that was on National Geographic in 2015 or 16, and it was called the Transgender Tipping Point. And in the video, it's like it's a few years after that, and the kid's like saying, I don't want to do this anymore, I regret it, it hasn't had a good thing on my life, talking about the activism. And you can tell that even that kid wasn't happy doing what they wanted to do. And you can tell there was very much a push for the parents, and it was clear in the video too. So there are various dynamics at play when it comes to a trans kid. You've either got a situation where you just want to be the special parent, and I'm sorry, but narcissism it's not a rare disorder. It's not less than 1%. There are people who have tendencies more so than other, and there's a lot of people who are desperate to be noticed in this world, where it's getting harder and harder to be noticed. And there's all this social stock in being trans and having a trans kid, and how glorious and resistance, and it's almost like proving to the parents that they are the best parents, because despite how difficult it is, they're going to stick by their trans kid, right? And it creates this very, very, what would be the right term? It would be like this extremely zealous group of people that push the identity on the kid. Sometimes you do also have the kid who was just like, I'm trans and I want to be known as whatever. And it's like, okay, then cool. But I don't have any problem with kids wearing what they want and stuff.
No.
I think where the problem is when you create the risk at creating dysphoria by creating this expectation in their mind that because they've been affirmed in their chosen pronouns like he or she, that that's actually what they are. So as they grow up, they come to realize just from being physically present with themselves that they are not that he or not that she. They are actually the opposite. And actually, they've got all these tells. And it's also, and they've been told that this is the worst thing for them. And you're the right to be distressed, but puberty is distressing for all children. I don't know any kid who was like, I loved that period. It was the best time of my life. And it was like, I'm sorry, but you have a lot of emotions and stuff like that. And your fundamental question was, yes, things do change. And sorry, I totally rambled off on you there, Alex.
No, I think it's really interesting, and I have nothing against sidetracking, because I think we're touching upon some really interesting subjects and issues here.
Yeah.
And
So sorry, I remember going back on the thread. You're creating a sense of dysphoria because you're creating this idea that they are what they say they are, but they're not, and they learn the hard way. And then you look at the impact of puberty blockers on, because when you look at it, right, it's always a male kid taking the puberty blockers. Has anyone ever really noticed that? Like, you do see some female children taking puberty blockers, but it's almost always the males who are doing it. And it's like,
there's an argument for that sort of. It's apparently because testosterone is sort of a stronger hormone, and it's harder to reverse the effect of it. So if you think of it in the terms of how effective the results of transition would be, it would be better for males to start taking puberty blockers and hormones as early as possible to get the best results. I'm not saying that this is bioethically the best thing to do, but just from that point of view.
What I've tend to noticed when it comes down to people who blend in the most, people who weren't on puberty blockers and started, say, just estrogen at, say, 16 or even in the early 20s, mid-20s and beyond, they always look more real and more passable than the puberty block kids. And the puberty block kids have lots of notable, how should I say, there are certain characteristics within the physique that you can almost tell. For instance, the hunchback, the shoulders, the elongated arms and legs. You've also got the issue with the forehead, kind of like not properly developing, so you end up with this weird squidgy football. There is a certain individual who I'm thinking of on Twitter, in fact, but I'm not going to be a cunt. But to be honest, it's like these things ruin your body. You ruin your bones. They ruin your organs. all for the sake of vanity, and the vanity is a false promise. You've got more chance of being passable if you don't do this than going on puberty blockers, which I find ironic.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Would you say that there was a specific point in your life where you started to think that you're supposed to transition into a woman, or did it happen gradually, or was it more of a instant sort of effect?
No, I when I was quite young, I remember seeing like documentaries and stuff about it, and I was thinking, God, you know, if I lived in America, I would totally do that, or I'll do it when my parents are dead, and all this sort of thing. And I
Okay,
very much had this idea that, yeah, that's something that I probably wanted, but it wasn't accessible. And the
right,
second
right.
that I realized it was accessible was when I was like, oh my God, you can do that. I'm doing that. I'm doing that right now. So if I had that knowledge when I was much younger, and it was available, I would have went for that 100%, because the problems that I had weren't time barred, you know? There was no time limit on them. Like, your trauma is not going to go away over time. You're going to all your concept of yourself and all these other things and all the factors that led to transition, the absolutist thinking and the same-sex attraction, the OCD, the obsessiveness, the desire for a solution. They were all, you know, sorry, lost my
Yeah.
train of thought.
But would you say it was a sort of fantasy or an obsession, or did it come from this horrible feeling of you feeling not at home in your own body? Was it a more of a psychological or more of a physical thing? I mean, I think it's always a psychological thing, no matter what, because
Oh
you know
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
not just the body. And I always say, whenever says that someone's born in the wrong body, like there's nothing wrong with your body. Your body is healthy as it's supposed to be. It's absolutely a mental illness thing.
Yeah, yeah, it is absolutely a mental illness. Um, I think a big part of it too was I wanted to be one of the girls when I was very young as well, and I couldn't really be one of the girls, because I was a boy, and that there was that very strict sense of this is what boys do, this is what girls do, and I think that was a complementing factor. And then was the fact that I didn't think like anyone around me. I just couldn't, and it was mainly because of the autism, right? Like, I couldn't communicate the same way others could. I would resolve conflict with fists when I was like 8 and 9, because that's what I was taught. That's what I saw. It was just like, if somebody's causing you problems, you punch them in the
Yeah,
face. That's what I
yeah,
did.
very
So
ladylike.
very ladylike. Oh yeah, honestly, I was like, when I think about it, I was like, I wasn't really even like. I was like very soft as a kid, and I was slightly effeminate, but I wasn't an
Right.
effeminate or camp kid. I was just a soft kid, who was very loving and very. I just wasn't I just didn't want to be tough, but I was in a
Mm.
very, very tough, hardened environment, because that's what
Yeah.
it's like when you're in a working class area. You just
Yeah.
it's rough, especially when you're male, because there's an expectation you have to fight, which I did. There were a lot like we're always scrapping, and I hated it. And then eventually I would just start getting my ass kicked. And then also the delayed puberty that I naturally. And this is just something that happens in some people. My brother, in fact, had like an even more delayed puberty than me, right?
Mm.
Um, and I wasn't like starting to like 15, 16. I was tiny, like really small. Um, and I was always, even before like all my friends like grew up, I had this sort of disparity between me and everyone else. I was always the shortest, and I was always like kind of there was always that clear disadvantage between me and others, you know. And it just got worse in high school, and I think that contributed to the sense of hating my body. And then you add in the same-sex attraction, then you add in all the online shit, like, because I was getting groomed as well from. I need I've tried to map out the timeline in my head for this as best as I can, and I think it was from around late summer 2000 and beyond to about 2003, right? It was about that period, and it went on for ages, and like, I don't know. I think that definitely had a big part to play in it as well. But all these things, and not that everyone was groomed and stuff, but there's a lot of weird interactions people have with adults online as well that people don't really talk about too. And I think there's a lot of boundary pushing, and I think there still is a lot of boundary pushing, and that complements to it as well. And then, yeah.
Yeah, because I think so many elements of it's really dark.
Yeah, I've just
And I
noticed
see
it's
this
getting
as
better.
you create a contrast between my
Yeah,
screen and yours. It's like
yeah, mine's about to get dark too
darkness and
because
light.
yeah.
I represent the evil, you represent the good. See, we fulfill each other. I
Yin and
try
yang.
to. I have my window. No, it's much worse like that, I think.
I can hear you. That's all that matters. We can hear each other.
Yeah. Just black and white is the theme for this video, and I think
Yes,
my
it is.
clothes sort of represent that too.
Yeah, I should have went all black and white, but I'm in I've got like my holiday shirt on essentially because
Yeah,
it's
I see
hot
that.
today. It's really hot. I've got shorts on as well. Like, got
Yeah.
not short shorts, but shorts. Anyway, back to the topic at hand.
Right. So what I was saying is that there's so many elements, in your upbringing and your transition that seem also very relatable to me. Being a soft kid, I also I delight puberty and growing up in a pretty tough environment. Which had a lot of focus on this performative masculinity, but not masculinity in a good sense, but more in a who's tougher, who's more
Yeah,
threatening
yeah,
type of environment, and
yeah.
that was definitely part of the reason why I transitioned, because I felt like I wasn't good enough to be a man for that reason. But then I look back and I see other elements that contributed to that, and that is like my dislike towards my own genitals. So that's why my question to you is, has your dislike for transition been more of a social thing, in the sense that it was fueled by your environment and maybe internet or maybe real life environment, or was it something that was going on more in your head?
I think I need to understand the question, which is, are you asking, was I transitioning more for the social factor or the physical factor in a way?
Maybe not the reason for which you transitioned, because the reasoning for like social transitioning could be like, for instance, passing as a heterosexual person by changing your sex. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, it meant more like contributing factors to the very transition that happened, the build up to it. Was it? Did it come from you and your own sort of discomfort with your own body? Did you felt that at all, or was it purely social?
I think I had a few markers for typical, like, dysphoria is so bland, by the way, as a description. Like, it's
Mm.
so indescript. And in fact, a lot of gay people and bi people have that experience of feeling like, oh, I must be a girl because I like boys and I'm a boy, right? Because I can't possibly be gay. And I think it's a lot to do with that. But the factors leading up, I think it was very much the sort of, as soon as I discovered it was an option and a possibility, I then looked back at my entire history and over attributed things that weren't there. For instance, I had a lot of panic attacks as a kid because I'm a very anxious person and always panicking. I haven't had one in a while because I'm medicated for it. But I had my first panic attack at 4 years old. And that was mainly to do with the fact that I had like a chest infection and I couldn't catch my breath. So I fell into a bit of panic, and that's what happened. But I would retcon that to mean, oh, I was panicking about being a boy from the age of 4. And it's like these little things where you take all these normal events and then twist them. So, for
Yeah.
instance, when I was 6, 7, I got into the idea I really wanted to be a ballerina. And then when I was 7 or 8, I tried to be a ballerina, right? And it was a really cringy thing, but again, that gets retconned of, I clearly wanted to be a girl. No, that was a very fun-looking activity. It was very flamboyant. It was a very, like, colourful, pretty activity that I wanted to do. That didn't mean that I was a girl. It just means that I
No,
wanted to
definitely not.
do that
No.
thing, right? But again, that gets retconned. And also, I had very long hair. Like, I had like a mushroom sort of haircut, which was very popular in the 90s, like the step, if you ever had that. And
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
yeah, and it went, mine was quite long, so I was always getting like confused for a girl, and I kind of was
Me
like,
too. Me too.
I'm a boy, but I would kind of like that, and I was thinking, okay, okay, I've got all these experiences of intense dysphoria, but a lot of it going into transition was, to go back to your original question about the build-up, was as soon as I entered these communities, there was this like sort of desire to pick apart all my history and say this was because trans, because trans, because trans, not child in distress, not child trying to understand his role in society when he's gay, not like just trying to explore a very natural thing for any kid,
Yeah.
which is to express themselves, which I was doing from 4 or 5. But I loved me Tonka trucks, I loved Lego, but I also had, when I was about just before I turned 4, I was about 4 years old, I demanded from my mother this pop-up kitchen, right? And it was the most, like, I Googled it a while ago. It's the most gender neutral thing you've ever seen in your life, right? It was like white and blue. Like, it could have been for boys and girls quite easily. But my dad was very like, that's going to make him turn gay and all this sort of shit. And it's like, that's kind of some of the thing that we're dealing with here as well. It's like this very rigid expectation of, because your interests are aligned that way, that must mean this, therefore it's going to be really bad. But that fear of, oh my God, I'm going to end up gay, started very, very early on, because I
Right.
kind of knew.
Would you say that your dad sort of instilled that fear in you?
I
Or
think he was. He didn't say anything like horrible or mean to me directly. I think it was mainly the environment and culture in collaboration. It was everyone saying it. My dad, from about the age of 7 or 8, I think accepted that I was just a soft kid and I was probably going to be gay, right? Completely accepted that. And there's a reason why that I know that is pretty much the case. So after that, he just didn't really say much about it, but it was all the in-between messaging that you get in school and society, on media, and I just had this horrible fear. I was like, I don't want to end up that way. And I did everything I could to not end up that way, because to me, it was the worst thing in the world. So I don't think there was any one person who was responsible for implanting that fear, but I do think that a lot of the ideas do start at home and with family. And I think my family was very pro-gay growing up, to be honest. And that's no disrespect to them. That's just what they were like. Not all
I
of them.
see. Yeah. You know, what I found very relatable about what you said is the whole idea of like rewriting your own history, basically. And
Yeah.
you know, I was doing that myself because I used to like to play things like kitchen or doing laundry when I was just 3 years old. And when I started thinking that I want to change my sex, I was looking back to that time and it's like, see, here's the evidence that I am trans. Or I would look back to the time when I was 8 years old and I had a piece of an acoustic guitar broke. And what I did is I took nail polish and I was painting this piece of wood. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I want to paint my nails. So I did paint my nails. And that was all that was, you know. It doesn't make you fucking girl just because you paint your nails once when you were 8.
Yeah.
But once you become so convinced that, oh, this is the reason why I'm trans, and I think a lot of people do that in therapy as well.
Yeah.
And not just when it comes to trans stuff, but it's like, I want this specific diagnosis. So I'm going to be looking up this small little details that add up to my own narrative. That's why
Absolutely.
that's why I
Confirmation
don't think,
bias.
you know, when you're a therapist and you're working with someone and you're trying to diagnose them with any diagnosis, whether it's gender dysphoria or autism or a personality disorder, you can't put all your faith in what the patient is saying because
Yeah.
they are biased, you know.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, there's also that element of they want that diagnosis, but there's also another factor I feel gets overlooked. Excuse me, which is people want somebody to acknowledge pain. Like, a lot of people are in pain, and this is an easy route to acknowledge that pain, whatever the pain is. You've got people who will listen to you if something transphobic happens or something terrible that happens that you've pinned as the worst thing. But actually what you're getting is you're getting much needed attention. And people have this thing in this concept in their minds that being attention seeking is like a really shit human behavior, but actually it's the natural reaction to being hurt. You know, if you are injured in the street, right, and you can't move, you're going to shout and scream until somebody comes and helps you. If you're in mental distress, you're going to do very much the same. And I feel like a lot of people just want to be heard that their pain, whatever that pain is, no matter how, because I also think there's this temptation that people don't value that whatever their hurt is isn't enough on its own to warrant empathy, and it has to be attached to something else, like a trans identity. So if you're just a disabled person, then you might get some empathy, but if you're a disabled trans person, oh boy, you've got a lot of empathy there. And it's like, that's a very basic split example, but this is kind of what's happening across the board, where you've also got a lot of people with arrested development, people who haven't been nurtured properly. And it's not just because they're bad parents, it's just because some people in the way we live as a culture as well, we don't always get that nourishment, and not everyone's family is functional, you know? So you're going to seek that nourishment out when you're an adult. And this is what
Yeah,
happens.
absolutely. Yeah.
That's my rant
Oh,
over.
no. I thought you wanted to say something more on this
No.
topic.
No?
Because I noticed we've already spent quite a lot of time talking about that, but I want to move on a little bit to post-op life and what it's like for you living with the effects of surgery. And first of all, before I ask you this question, how long has it gone since you had your SRS?
Let's see. 5 years, just five years and a few months now. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it's been longer than that for me, because
Yeah,
it's
yours
been
has
not.
been quite a while.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
almost 10 years to be honest.
Yeah.
But like for me, even now, I still feel like some effects. Shitting is still quite painful and uncomfortable. If I jog or run for a prolonged period of time, I get pain in that area. So I
Yeah,
can't do it for very
exercises.
long. I can run for like 10, 15 minutes and I have to stop because the pain becomes quite unbearable.
Exactly the same, dude. The
Mm.
biggest problem I think people don't really understand is the mobility. Is not only do you lose you do not like you lose a lot of endurance and stamina generally anyway being on hormones, but the surgery just fucks your body really badly, right? And it's like if you walk too far or if you exercise too much, it just aggravates it, and you can be out for days, and it really does suck. And I think that's one of the things that wasn't I didn't really understand. I knew like I knew like I couldn't ride a bike very long before after surgery, but even now I still can't even sit on the seat. It's not possible. I can't even, you know what I mean? And it's like
Mm.
the little stupid things like not being able to stand up and pee in the middle of the woods when you're out and hiking with friends, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
I've
like
made an entire video in which I talked about that actually.
it's so
So,
fucked
so
up,
I
bro.
know exactly what you mean, man.
Yeah, man. And it's just like, dude, if I go and squat and they're like, oh, go squat, and I'm like, yeah, like I've got a lot of problems with the urinary stuff, as you may or may not know. And what that basically means is I don't have a very strong urine stream. So it kind of like dribbles
Mm.
out. So if I was to squat or something, it would just go down me crotch and me
Like,
leg. You know what I
yeah, I mean,
mean? And it's like,
same happens to me actually. So it doesn't like go properly when I squat. So that is not a possibility for me. So whenever I on a road trip or something like that, I need to find a toilet because I can't go to the woods and take a piss
yes,
there.
yeah, it's and it
Yeah, so I know
fucking sucks.
perfectly what you're talking about, and I know you've said before that your stream is very thin and it takes for you a long time to empty your bladder.
Yeah.
Um, I had a problem for the first year after the surgery, but it got better for me after that, where it basically returned to almost normal. I wouldn't say it returned completely to normal because it didn't. But for
So
you, it hasn't happened after the 5 years, so it might
yeah,
be that would be a chronic thing from now.
stenosis is what they call it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's basically the urethral passage isn't like it should be like, imagine this is a very, very basic example, but it should be like that, but it's more kind of loose and keeps collapsing and
Mm.
constricting, and that's because it's been shortened a few times with the surgery and all the other issues. Um and there's not a lot that can really do about that apart from like permanently catheterize here. But I've got one more procedure they're going to try because I've had all sorts over the last few years trying to get this fixed.
Right.
I had one in March, just gone. I've got another one scheduled, and they think this might help. And they're talking about like inflating a balloon inside or something. I don't know, but apparently
Mm.
that's going to help.
Okay,
Um,
that sounds quite disturbing, to be
Horrible. I
honest.
know you're gonna
Yeah,
be awake. Oh god,
yeah,
getting
dude.
cathetized as well sucks. By the way, if no one's ever been, oh my god, I'm still wincing now at it. It's like horrible, horrible, horrible. Um, but yeah, I think the the issues are just so profound. Like they're all over the place. Like it impacts every facet of your life. How you're sitting for too long, walking, where you're going. Is that, can I go into that place? Is the toilet, is it going to give us
Yeah.
anthrax if I sit on that toilet? You know what I mean? And it's like
Mm,
sometimes I'm carrying a bag with wipes in and fresh underwear and stuff, depending on where I'm going, or I'm limiting my journeys. I just, it totally has massively limited my life, like in a
mm.
huge way, huge way.
Wow. Wow.
Not in a good way as well.
No, no, of course not. I mean, I don't think there is such a thing as limiting your life in a good way, to be honest.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. That was a poor choice of words from me there. Yeah.
No, but I mean, I get what you mean, right? But do
See,
you
now I'm getting
really
dark. Yeah, it's
feel,
getting dark. Yeah, we're gonna be sitting
yeah,
in the
but do you really
darkness soon.
feel like bothering with another procedure?
Fuck
Because for
no.
me,
Fuck
I'm like,
no.
you know what? If I had something with me that was to threaten my life right now, I would say, fuck it, let me die. I'm not going for another procedure. Hell no. I can't be bothered now.
Unless it's to fix a pre-existing problem, I am done with surgery. Like, I will do
Mm,
this urethral thing, and then that's it. After this is it. And these are
yeah.
these aren't invasive surgeries. These are like very, very minor things. But
Mm, I
no
see.
more
I see.
surgeries. No more surgeries. Fuck surgeons. Fuck them to hell. They are so unethical. There's very, 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 very few that probably act like they should do and ask patients, inform them of the risks. And there's this whole like acceptable narrative. If it goes wrong, it's your fault because you didn't read the risks. And it's like
Mm,
when I got
yeah.
handed the risks, which most of them were like granulation, infection, like very, very like, oh, of course you're gonna get granulated. Of course you're gonna bleed. Of course you're gonna da 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 da.
Yeah, obvious
You know,
stuff, right? And a lot of those
it's like 1 in
complications we had
250.
aren't even mentioned there.
Yes. Oh no, none
Yeah.
of like the stenosis and stuff like that.
Mm,
I need to dig out my sheet because it lists a few, but it doesn't list the things that I'm having. And also there's a simple problem that my consent copy isn't signed and all that sort of shit. And it was like, it just goes to show they just didn't give a fuck in the process. It was, just go on, crack on, you'll be fine, you know?
mm. Yeah,
Um,
no, I know perfectly what you mean. And, for a long time, it has also been my mindset that what really annoys me is like one of the first questions I get asked whenever I say that I have detransition is if I want to have a reconstruction surgery. And the biggest hypocrisy for me here is when those people who ask that are also the people who are against the gender sex reassignment surgery,
hmm.
but they're okay with reconstruction surgery and think that this is the first thing I should do. And I'm very clear about it that I don't think people should be getting those surgeries, whether it's a reconstruction or reassignment surgery.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
all basically
experimental.
it's one hell for your body, like goes through, and it has horrible complications, and I don't understand why someone would be such a hypocrite about it and recommend that surgery when they're against the other surgery.
That's a good point, actually. I hadn't thought of it in that angle, but I think it's that instinctively, oh, this will fix you back to your original state, and it's like you can't fix
No,
this. You
no,
can't get back
exactly.
the erectile tissue. You can't get back the muscles that were severed. You can't get back
Depends.
the
Depends.
lost nerves.
I do you have the erectile tissue?
At the very, like, no one, everyone has their erectile tissue shredded, but what you have is you get the base that they can't get rid of. That stays
I have
behind.
I don't know. Maybe my surgery was different because I have a lot of my erectile tissue, if not
God.
most of it. So it's quite discomfortable and painful when I get
No.
erections now because it's
Oh.
inside your body.
I could definitely feel that, like, part of it, but there is definitely tissue. Like, I can feel that sense that something wants to get erect, and it can only do it at, like, the very base. Like, I use the knuckle analogy, like, it's like if your fingers were severed, it's like I can still move me knuckle, but I can't, obviously the finger's gone, and that's kind of how it feels on the inside. So you saying you're more like this, or more like that?
Oh, I mean, it's really fucking hard to explain it when we compare it to knuckles because it's a very different
Yeah, it's
thing.
a very shit
I mean,
analogy.
it's okay. So the erectile tissue doesn't really go along like the depth, but rather the length next to my body, like this. Like, okay, here's the skin, my
Damn.
body, and the erection goes along this rather than into the depth of my body. Does that
Whoa,
make
whoa.
sense?
Yeah, it does. And that sounds really fucking
You
horrific.
know, sometimes when I talk openly about my genitals on the internet, I feel like I'm just one step away from having an OnlyFans account. To be honest, like at this point, I might just make one.
Do it, do it, do it. Castrate. We'll go in business together. Top 1% of eunuchs. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a genre that is not overly saturated yet.
Oh, we would win it as well. Rule 34.
Yeah,
We've got
yeah.
it. We've
New
got it.
career choice here awaiting us.
Yeah. I'm not saying anymore.
But how are you with the result? I mean, how happy are you with the results of your surgery in terms of how it looks? And
I hate how
yeah,
it looks.
your private
Oh,
part is my favorite thing to talk about, obviously. So I needed to
bro.
ask that question.
Really don't like how it looks at all.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
like lion spread just doesn't look like anything really.
Mm.
Um, it the only time it looks like anything really is when I'm probably standing up, and say if I was stood up naked, you'll probably just think just looks like a vagina because it's just a slit, right? But it's not
Mm.
until like when you look, you're like, it's not real labia. There's
Yeah.
discoloration from a skin condition called lichen sclerosis. There's scarring, because both my sutras burst wide open. It's just not a good thing. I don't like looking at it. And you know what it was? It took me to get one to realize that I actually find vaginas and fake vaginas absolutely disgusting. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. Like, ugh. Um, and I've been around real vaginas before, and it's just like not into them. Don't know what the hell I was
Mm.
thinking. Because I thought, oh, straight women on into their own vaginas, obviously, and I'm like, well, that's a retarded thing to think. Because obviously, you're gonna jerk off doesn't mean just you love your body. Just means you're jerking off, right? Just means you're wanking
Mm.
off. It's getting dark here too, but I've got RGB lighting on my computer,
Mm.
you see, so it's gonna make this glow like a pride flag. I'm afraid.
Yay! Such a gay episode.
This
This is
episode is gay.
probably the gayest video on my channel yet.
Is it? Wow,
Yay!
God. You need to do more gay. I've got an RGB keyboard, RGB RAM, RGB mouse, RGB lighting inside. God, I just hate
Great.
the RGB.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. Because you're definitely more gay than me since I'm bi, so I'm technically half gay.
Check out, is that because like your dad was gay and your mom wasn't gay, so you're like half gay?
I don't know how that works. But
We can
that
make
would
it work.
imply that sexual identity is hereditary.
It probably is.
I mean, I've heard of
Have-
that theory, but a lot of the time I'm thinking, if the gay gene is hereditary, it
I've
probably
heard,
wouldn't survive very long if gay men choose to have sex with other men, unless they exclusively have sex with women in order to pass that gay gene.
I really just think sexuality isn't as straightforward as people think. I think
No.
it's largely fixed at a certain position, but there's fluidity within that position. For instance, you might have somebody who's heterosexual, right? But they may, from before puberty, and it's quite normal for boys to do that as well, is to have like crushes on the friends and stuff like that, but they're very short-lived things, and it's all part, I just think it's like, it's not as black and white as people think, and there's a fear of the meaning behind it, and you have to declare it as well. But, there are some strong men in history who have, had men and women, and it's like, I don't think it's a bad thing at all, really. I do think it's a little bit repressive on how we are with sexuality generally these days, especially amongst adults. Adults, in my opinion, should be free to do what they want to do sexually, but that freedom should have limits in terms of where and when it's done. For instance, we've got public indecency laws to stop people walking
Yeah,
around
definitely.
naked, and it's like, why is it okay now to go to a pride thing and show off your BDSM or your pup shit? And it's
Yeah.
like,
And
or worse.
one thing I really hate about it is how it puts off so many others off, like Pride Month.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: if like that whole kinky thing wasn't going on, I wouldn't have anything against participating in a parade. But I think
Absolutely.
there's a lot of us who are part of like the LGBT who just don't feel at home there because of that. So you automatically exclude a big portion of people from the event because of how overly sexualized it is.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. It has become a festival for heterosexual people now. That's where it came, in the kinks.
Yeah, no, that too,
With
that
their
too.
gay best friends who can tag along to. That's what it's turned into. It's like, fuck
Yeah,
pride, man. Fuck pride,
yeah. I mean,
massively.
it's just a corporate fad, really. And you know what annoys me so much is when people on the left who are supposed to be like anti-capitalist praise all those corporations because they put out
That's a good point too.
rainbow flags. And I'm like, okay, so what? Suddenly it's okay for like big corporations to have like this level
Yeah.
of economic elitism. Is basically what it is.
I think it
Just
was,
because they put out the rainbow flag or BLM logo or whatever, just slap it on and everybody's happy.
I think it had some weight and value in terms of the value for the company in about, I would say 2018 to 2020 was the peak period where if a company didn't do this, it would be harmful to their profit margins and their representation and their reputation by not changing it to a pride logo or flag or whatever, because
True.
it was very much a mark of professionalism, not a mark of anything else. So now we're at a point where it's like, this is no longer professional. We are no longer playing the inclusion game and the diversity game. In fact, take the fucking flag down if you want to stand out. Because if you, by including it now automatically, you're showing that you're not being attentive to the issues at hand. Because one of the biggest issues was they do that for a month and then all of a sudden it's disappeared. Surely it either matters or it doesn't,
Yeah, like
right?
Christmas lights.
Yeah,
Really.
Christmas lights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quickly before I move on to the next part of the discussion, which I think is like the meat and potatoes of this whole thing. Just a short question. Your username on Twitter and YouTube are TullipR. Are tulips your favorite flowers?
I like tulips. I really do. They're
Right,
poisonous to cats though, so I can't have tulips in the
right,
house. They're
right.
not me most favorite flower. I don't think I've ever got a super favorite flower. The name TullipR was from Tulip Rose because when I first came on the scene, what I wanted is I wanted a name that sounded like a boomer because I was so paranoid that
Mm-hmm.
people could figure out who I was. I was trying to pretend to be like a middle-aged gender critical person. So I took a very, very boomerish name and I thought, oh, let's just combine two flowers. And then I started thinking about the meaning behind it. And I think the meaning came after, to be honest. But at first it was a bit of self-preservation. I didn't want any I needed a name that was totally unrelated to me that I'd never used, never.
Right.
And
Okay.
it was because it was before I went public and it was before anyone would recognize us. And I just wanted to be invisible at that time, but then it kind of stuck. So, and I dropped the rose and just held the R for Ritchie, and it's
Right. Oh
evolved.
yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. But
Yeah.
Tulip Rose, I think you'd make a good character at keeping up the appearances with that name.
Yes, I would, wouldn't I?
Honestly.
Yes, yes, I would. Tulip Rose, darling.
Yeah. So my God, we're already talking for like 1 hour.
Yep.
It's crazy. Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, as they
Yeah.
say. Unless you're not having fun. You can
No,
be
I'm
honest. You can be.
no, I
I
am.
can take it.
The room is now glowing in RGB colors. How could I not be having fun? Look at it.
Okay,
Look at it.
great. I wish I had some of that, to be honest. You know what? I have light here. So let's see if that makes it.
Whoa.
Okay, I think it actually makes it much worse.
It kind of looks like you're being like abducted by an alien or something.
No, no, screw that. Screw that. I'm going full gothic emo mode.
Do it. Do it.
Yeah, you go gay mode, I go gothic mode.
Game
Yeah.
mode.
Two
Gays
G's,
represent.
2 G's in the house. So, okay. So, I started noticing this shit quite many years ago, to be honest. That there's a certain connection between autism and gender identity
Yeah.
thingy. What are your thoughts on that?
Autism is all. I mean, sorry, I had a cat hair in my mouth there. Autism is very much about absolutism and it's a very literal interpretation of your surroundings. And I think it makes perfect sense why somebody with an autistic, even high function, or people who have got very low traits, still have that underlying premise of this means that, therefore, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
I like boys, therefore I am a girl, right? It's that sort of thing. I think that's one of the major factors in it. And also, I think a lot of it has got to do with when it comes to the ADHD side, which is more of a reaction to environment rather than a condition. Like autism is something you're going to be born with. You don't develop autism, you have autism.
Mm-hmm.
ADHD, and I know people may disagree with this, ADHD is very much a reaction to your environment because it teaches you to self-soothe by distracting in the moment, right? So, and that can normally be done from because the prevailing theory is it happens at a very young age, like baby stages, where say your cries aren't addressed on time, you might, as a child, distract yourself, or maybe there's shouting in the background, maybe there's turmoil, and you distract yourself, and it's like. So I'm not explaining that very well. I think both ADHD and autism, most certainly, they provide the template for the thinking to get there.
Mm.
That's what they do, and that's why it's so prevalent.
Yeah, so
You
like
know?
the script is there.
Yeah, and
Now
the
you just sort of
way
like
of
make the
thinking.
movie around the script. You make it
Yeah,
happen. Yeah,
yeah.
makes sense. Makes sense. Because a lot of people who I have met who are trans, and those who detransitioned, as well as non-binary people too, a lot of them happen to be neurodivergent.
Well, there's also the sense that when you do have these differences in personality, or you've got a different way of thinking, because that's what autism really is. It's a way of processing information and thinking, right?
But also the
When
way you
you
socialize as well, and the way
Yeah,
you
yeah,
relate to people too.
absolutely everything. But that experience is very alienating. So you feel alien. So it makes sense for people who feel alien to desire that tribe. And it's like, hey, I feel alien too. Why? Because it's like all the nerds, basically. All the nerds are transitioning. Like if this was a school, right? We would be
Mm.
hanging around in the nerd group, right? And we would all be transitioning. But the popular kids who
Not
are,
me.
do you know what I mean? Like,
I know what you mean, but I don't. I don't really feel at home with that group, to be honest.
no, but I'm
Um,
saying the popular kids wouldn't be transitioning.
no,
It
no,
would
no.
be the
Exactly,
nerdy
exactly.
ones. The
Yeah,
nerdy
but
ones, the ones who are a little bit odd,
what I
the
think was,
oddballs.
but like what I think was always part of my autism is the lack of desire to be part of any group. To be honest, like I'm a total lone wolf. So for me, transitioning was never a social thing to like fit in this little group of misfits, sort of. But I think it is for quite many, and that is part of the reason why this is spreading socially, sort of like a viral thing.
I think rapid onset detransition is coming next, to be honest, because what they are slowly realizing is the empathy and patience for trans is kind of worn thin because of some extremists' behaviors. And, when you have like
Mm.
these horrible AGPs that are like going around and fucking up women's sports and they're fucking around everything else, right? Like, and they're really like vile and stuff. It's bringing about a really, really bad association. And I think because there is a cultural and social influence to it. People are starting to realize that detrans is the new minority, and there's going to be a hop over to that in the next coming months and years. That'll be the prevailing group that is being attacked.
Mm.
Because that is essentially true as well. That is we're more of a minority than trans people are, because we're a minority within a minority,
True, true. Technically, yeah.
So
I also think because of how a lot of people relate to social relations differently because of their autism will also relate to gender roles in a different way. So
yeah,
I have this theory that because gender roles are 100% a social thing.
yeah,
It's bounded in biology to some degree, but the way it expresses itself, the way it manifests itself, is purely a social thing, and that affects how someone who's not neurodivergent would perceive gender roles. And I think this, combined with this script that is laid out, this foundation, is the reason why a neurodivergent person might be more likely to transition.
yeah. I totally agree. And that is one of the key findings from the likes of the CAS report, where they find it's overwhelmingly overrepresented with people with autism and ADHD and other comorbid conditions too. So it's like
Hmm.
we know, everyone knows. We're just waiting for everyone else to catch up at this point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think more and more people are catching up on that, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree too.
And I hope it'll really move in that direction. And
I think so.
it's not to harm trans people, because I don't think that's a good thing. But I think it's something that would actually help people in the end.
Well,
When you have a better understanding of the way your mind works.
the vitriol is that, you know, this is a goal causing harm and we are killing people, genocide, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, actually, it would be very irresponsible if we said nothing. If we said, this is
Definitely,
fucked
yeah.
up, you need to be careful of these surgeries, you need to know what the fuck you're about, you need to, you know, we're saying the things that have not been said because it's been restricted of being said. And we're getting punished for it. And it's like, no, fuck you. I'm going to sit here and tell people that this is not a good idea. I'm going to be that 1-star review for them. There's a million 5-star reviews out there. I'm going to be that 1-star review and I'm going to tell them what happened, how it is, and give them a chance that I didn't have, because finding those 1-star reviews was nearly impossible. And it's like, that's all people deserve is like the truth. What is what's happening here? What does it mean? What will happen? How good is it really? Because when it goes wrong, the rest of it just falls apart. It's like, that's how you realize that it is all based on an idea, when that thing goes really wrong and the rest just crumbles, and you know.
Yeah, no.
I'm very green and purple now. I'm like a final boss. It's all
I
glowing behind us.
I really like the mood.
Yeah, it's really like.
Yeah, I think the only thing we
Ritchie.
need now is like candle lights.
Yeah, let's get some
Or
candles.
actually, on my side, I don't think it'll fit on your side when you have those rainbow lights in the background. But if I had
I
like
could have
candle lights,
candles too. Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I had a candle, but I used it up.
Oh no,
I
we're gonna have to
I
get
would
more
totally
candles.
light it up right now, and I love candle lights, especially like
I love
scented
candles.
candle lights, and
Yes,
I
yes.
love like lavender stuff like that.
I like the cherry blossom Yankee candles and stuff.
Nice, nice.
Lovely.
So this question I want to ask you is whether you've been diagnosed with autism before or after you transitioned.
I got diagnosed with autism in, when was it? Back end of last year, because I had self-referred in 2020, but COVID took a long time. I'd suspected it for a long time that I had autism. I even said to the gender clinic, like years ago, I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm autistic. You're not autistic.
You're autistic as fuck.
Mate, I am fucking. You see how many hours I got on Minecraft for a start? Like, that should be a diagnosis within itself. And it's like, yeah, I clearly was. And, you know, now it's kind of being used as an affirmative marker. If you got autism, it means you're trans. And it's like, actually, it used to mean the opposite. It used to mean like, you're probably more autistic than trans. Not that you can't be autistic and trans at the same time, blah, 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 as the story goes. But I do feel like that has purposely been overlooked. I really do.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. You know, personally, I consider myself to be an extroverted autistic.
Extra, yeah, I can.
You
I
know,
can
because like
vibe with that. I can vibe with that.
I'm definitely quite autistic, right? But I like being around people. I'm quite a social person. I'm
Oh
quite
yeah.
an extroverted person. On top of that, and also, you know, when I was diagnosed with autism, I was still living as a trans woman. Did you detransition before getting the diagnosis, or were you still a trans
Yeah.
woman at
No,
that time?
when I was seeking the diagnosis, I was trans. When
Right.
I got diagnosed, I was detransitioned
Okay.
because
Interesting.
of how long it took to get the diagnosis. It took like 3
Okay.
years.
Wow. It took me
Yeah,
half a year actually. Yeah.
it took a long time. COVID.
I was
COVID.
surprised how quickly it went, because
Yeah.
usually everything is a really long process in Norway. So I was super shocked that the whole process would be done in half a year. But I was living as a trans woman at the time, and as you know, like the criteria for autism in women and men are different. and now it's diagnosed based on the criteria for women, even though I am not a woman.
It's interesting.
Yeah. So would I have to be like re-diagnosed just to be sure that I actually do have autism? I mean, I do think I have it. I do think I have it, and the last therapist I talked to thinks so too. So
I think
it's not just
you've
in my
got.
head.
I think you've got autism. Yeah. You've definitely got the tism there, Alex. You get the
Oh,
Ritchie
thank you. That's
stamp of
that's
approval.
the best compliment I've received from you so far.
Ah, I don't compliment people enough if that's the best one I've ever given you. God. That
No,
whiskey, I
no,
can
no.
still smell that whiskey, by the way. That was foul. Like at the dinner,
What whiskey?
you got this whiskey with your wine. You had wine and whiskey, and
Yeah.
the whiskey is foul. Like it's
No,
disgusting.
whiskey is not foul.
It's it is.
Whiskey
It is.
is
It sucks. It's for people whose taste buds are fried from years of abuse. It's not good. It's not. It's not.
no,
It's not healthy. I'm
whiskey
sorry.
is the elixir of life.
Mm-mm.
I'll
Nah.
fight you over that, Richie.
I God, I'll
And for
fucking
me,
fight
like
you. Yeah.
the combo of red wine and whiskey is the best combo there is. Just this Wednesday, I was at this meeting. Well, meeting at a pub. We were drinking basically.
Yeah, that's a good beat.
Meeting. I had wine and whiskey, like always. You know, that's just how I go. That's how I roll.
Oh, I'm trying to stay off it. I'm a gin freak at the minute. Like I love me gin.
Yeah, I noticed like gin and tonic is your thing, right?
Oh yeah, gin and tonic all the way, baby. That's all I'm drinking. All I'm drinking.
Right. You know what? One thing I really don't like is beer.
I can't stand it actually. And
Yeah,
it
no.
makes us really bloated. Like I end really ill. I don't know why I forced myself to even try it when I was a teenager and early 20s. It was like, it's horrible. It's not
Yeah,
nice at
it's
all.
like social pressure, sort of.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but I'll take a gin hangover any day of the week versus any of those other ones.
You know, the only beer I find tolerable is Tokyo Black and something else. But yeah, Tokyo Black I find tolerable. I think it's okay.
I'm not. I don't actually even with gin. I don't know about many brands. I'm like, gin's gin, right? It's all the same. It's like vodka. How many different ways can you distill vodka, right? And it's like, surely it's just potatoes and water, right?
Yeah,
Isn't it?
yeah. Basically, potatoes, water, and ethanol. So. But would you guess what my favorite brand of whiskey is? Or maybe you remember because I think I've mentioned that in Aylesbury.
I wouldn't. I know one brand. I think Old Grouse. That's the only
Okay,
brand I know.
I
That's the
do like
only
Old
brand.
Grouse.
And Jack Daniels, of
No,
course.
okay, Jack Daniels is not whiskey; it's bourbon. Two different things. Two different things.
See, I don't fucking know anything about bourbon or whiskey or any of that shit. Anyway,
Lafroy is my favorite. Love Lafroy.
that is what my boss loves. He loves it. Absolutely won't. He loves that thing.
Right.
He calls it Lafrog though or something.
Okay, I think I might get along at your
You would
workplace
actually.
then.
You would.
Yeah.
You would. Yeah.
Okay, so we both have autism. We both transitioned. I mean, the pattern emerges, right?
That's two people. That's two people. Must be
Two is
true.
more than one. There's more evidence now, and
Exactly.
on top of that, you have many, many, many others. I don't think we're capable of counting how many people there actually are who follow this pattern. But did you arrive at the conclusion that you're gay after you detransitioned, or did you actually accept that thought before you transitioned first? Like, did you come out as gay first before you transitioned?
No, I didn't come out as gay first. I did not accept I was gay even until after surgery. It took till about, I think 2019 is when I started to be like, okay, I'm gay. Like clearly.
Right.
Like And I know it sounds stupid, like, because I was never into women, because I viewed myself as like a heterosexual woman, right? But
Mm.
then as I was like unraveling, and I was like, well, I'm male, and I was like, what does that? Well, I'm gay. I'm clearly not into women. And it took a few experiences to really realize that as well. Just how your body reacts with men versus women, and like the physical smell of men and the presence, and I just get along with men so well and easy, and women I'm just like, I can relate to them and talk to them, but I don't have any desire to kiss them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
No, I know what you mean. And
just
if you're anything like me, then the attraction towards the smell, like at me for at least,
my god, oh my
it's
god.
more important than the way a person looks.
Yeah.
I'm
Men,
all about the smell.
yeah, same. Some men smell amazing as well. Like, oh my god, they really do.
For a long time, it's not that I was repressing my bisexuality, but I didn't know I was.
You didn't know?
And like for a long time, I just didn't think about it. Like if I'm attracted to men or women, that was just never something that was in my mind. And I don't think I felt attracted to someone until I was in my 20s.
Wow, really?
Yeah,
Damn. No,
actually,
I had my
and
first crush when I was like 9.
wow, no, I
Yeah,
never had like crashes growing up.
like the crushes as a kid are very different as crushes as an adult, because like this is before the sexuality is like it's in its early stages. Like I always compare it. It's like your emergent sexuality as a child is like a house being built, it's brick by brick, it's room by room, it's not the same as an adult sexuality who has a whole house with rooms and decorated and wallpaper, and it's all whatever. That's an adult sexuality. A child sexuality is being built, and a crush at that age wasn't sexually fueled. It was more to do with infatuation and I want to be around this person. I want to be this person. And then as I got to about 12 or 13, because that crush persisted for years and years as I was growing up, that's when it really started to become sexual, when I started to investigate myself, shall we say.
Right.
Yeah. So it was like that sexuality built up. So I can say the crush started at 9, but it wasn't like it was the way you crush as an adult, if that makes sense. It was very much like a early childhood. Like, I don't know what the term is. Puppy love or something.
Yeah. I mean,
But I don't
for
use
me,
the term anymore. It's been poisoned by furries. Fucking furries.
oh god, I don't even know what you're talking about. But that's me being a technological dinosaur who knows
Oh, bro, you
absolutely
don't want
nothing
to
about
know.
internet culture. And right now, I'm glad I don't, to be honest. So I'm not going to dig further on that.
Okay.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
You really don't. Neither do you.
But it's interesting for me to hear about that because I never had those crashes when I was a kid, when I was growing up, and I would say that this is how they work for me now as an adult. They're not sexually fueled.
Is that because you're not on any hormones and you don't?
No. I mean, I do. Physically, I get horny,
right?
and I do feel sexual attraction. But when it comes to crashes, they're not sexual at all. And it might be because the crashes I get are exclusively on women, whereas my sexual attraction is exclusively towards men. That's why instead of saying I'm bisexual, what I always prefer to say is that I'm straight until I'm horny.
Okay, that's a bit of a call.
Yeah. And I know how fucking convoluted and complicated it is, but
I'm straight too until I get horny. It's like then I'm like, yeah, I'm straight.
I mean,
why not?
couldn't every gay person say that It's
Yeah, they
cute,
could.
to be honest.
They really could. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, makes sense, makes sense. But I'm thinking because I didn't get crashes when I was growing up, and I think the way you socialize when you start dating as a teenager sort of shapes your ability to build those romantic and sexual relationships.
I didn't
But
do
because
that.
I never socialized in that way,
Yeah.
and I didn't start getting those kind of feelings until I was in my 20s, I don't really know how to approach that because I never learned that when I was younger
No,
because I had zero interest in that. And then you have a layer of autism on top of that. And
I'm with you
I
on that one.
approach every romantic interest as a friendship in a way.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
I mean, I do flirt a lot just, for shits and giggles, sort of as a joke, but like I never mean it in a way.
Right, okay, okay. I'll
Yeah.
keep that in
Does that
mind.
make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. You flirt for sport, basically. You're a
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
team.
yeah, yeah. And it actually gives you like a boost in energy. If you go to a bar or a pub and you like flirt with someone, and then you have
Yeah,
this
I
boost
do.
of energy, and you come home and you're fucking working on a project, and boom, I wrote 5 pages of my book just like that.
Oh, lovely. Excellent.
Yeah.
Super.
So that's the strategy I'm using basically.
Go and hit on somebody and then do some writing. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm gonna go
instead of
hit on
taking them
someone there.
home, when it comes to the part, okay, are we going to my place? Are we going to your place?
Nah, I'm going
Fuck
to
you,
my place.
fuck you, I'm going
You're
to
going
my
to your
place.
place. Fuck you. I'm gonna go right.
Screw you
Thanks for the
guys, I'm going
inspiration, Vic.
home. Two final things I wanted to talk about, and one of those things is the side effects of hormones, HRT in general. And I remember when I first found out about you, before we even talked, was was you on the Blaire White's
Yeah,
podcast?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And before I found that video, I myself made my first video on YouTube in which I talked specifically about the connection between high estrogen levels in the males and potential development of dementia.
Cognitive
And
decline.
so you're talking about the same topic,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, it was so cool to hear someone else talking about it because I don't hear anyone else talking about this, at least
Well,
not on YouTube. I think you're the only person other than me I found who actually talked about it.
yeah, I think we are fast approaching this huge catastrophic nightmare in 10, 20 years' time. We're going to have a generation of people with very bad cognitive decline. I've had it for years with estrogen, like losing my train of thought. At first, I thought it was like a stress thing.
Mm.
And even times when I'm told to relax, I can be like talking to somebody, and be like, it's gone. Whatever I was talking about, it's just gone. And see, it's kind of like it's starting to go there. It's only when I let me mind wander a little bit. But I really think that the research is already exists. It just hasn't been connected together because we know from what's out there that low testosterone in males is a contributing factor. High estrogen is a contributing factor. So what happens when you overpump a male with lots of estrogen and you block the testosterone? I wonder. So it sounds like we've got a possibility of hell awaiting us. And it was very important for me to get all my activism out the way now while I can, in case that was a reality that struck. And it might strike. You don't know. It might. We simply don't know. But I would love to be disproven on that. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be disproven on that one.
Yeah, because as far as I'm aware, there are like two separate research that's been done that points towards this, and one is that at a certain age, high levels of estrogen in males, and we're not even talking trans women. We're not talking males who have transitioned, but males who develop a high estrogen in their
Right.
body for some reason. A lot of the time it's due to obesity, for example,
Yeah.
are at higher risk of developing dementia at an early age, and
People who,
developing it as a whole, because not every person would develop it at an
yeah,
old age either. So you're definitely at a higher risk of that. And then if you're on synthetic estrogen, and you have even higher dose contributing to that,
yeah,
and if you're starting with that at a very, very young age, it is not natural for a male to have that level of estrogen in their blood.
it's not.
We
It's
all
not.
have some levels of estrogen, but it is completely unnatural, and it has a devastating effect on your cognitive ability in the long run. And I don't
Yeah.
think it will affect everyone so early as it did with me, because I had this brain fog very early on. It kicked in maybe 3-4 months after I started doing estrogen. But I think
Yeah.
for most people it will do so eventually. And then you have this other research, which is not necessarily scientific. It's more when it comes to specific like number statistics, of like elderly care homes, I mean, where the number of patients with dementia among transgender patients is higher,
Yes.
statistically speaking. And then
Yes.
you connect those two researches together, and boom,
Yeah.
quite
And everyone's,
terrifying, really.
yeah, and everyone's quick to dismiss it. Everyone's quick to, when I say everyone, when we know who I'm talking about, that trans activists, very quick to dismiss it. And it's like, what if even if I'm half right, it's still devastating. But if I'm
Oh yeah,
right,
oh yeah.
or we're right, sorry, we're fucked. We're really fucked, because there is no reversing cognitive decline. There's nothing. There's nothing. Like, yeah, we might have developed some Alzheimer's and stuff, and and there's lots of developmental medicines that are proven effective, but all that does is slow it down. You can't reverse it. You can't undo the damage, because it is literally what Alzheimer's is literally cavities in the void of
Yeah,
cells in your
yeah.
brain, and
It's
that's
it's it's
what.
an it's a physical thing, basically, in your
Yes,
brain.
it is. It is. Whereas dementia is less physical. It's more. There can be various
Mm,
reasons for that.
yeah,
Whereas Alzheimer's
yeah,
is
yeah,
traceably. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. A lot of people confuse dementia and Alzheimer, actually. And
Yes,
I,
there
yeah,
are very similar though. It's just one is actually does have a physical basis. I would
yeah,
say they
yeah.
both do. I'm gonna shut up there because I'm not an expert. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
I mean, Alzheimer is definitely those are cavities in the brain, basically.
Yes, cavities
Cavities.
in the
Yeah,
brain.
that's
That's what you fucking do.
Alzheimer. I used to study occupational therapy for a short while, so I was at placement at this care home for elderly patients. So I was around quite a lot of
Yeah.
elderly people with dementia there. But have you heard? There's a music album by an artist, British artist called The Caretaker, and the album is called Everywhere at the End of Time.
No, I've not heard
Okay,
that
it's an
one.
instrumental album, no lyrics whatsoever, and it's just music that represents the development of dementia.
Oh
So,
wow.
I mean, I think the whole album is more than over 2 hours long, and it
Yeah.
starts with like this nostalgic jazz from like the 20s, 30s, something like a ballroom jazz, like something an elderly person would listen like in their room. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm getting chills just talking about it.
You should send
Yeah,
that. Send that to me, because that
yeah,
sounds really cool.
I'm totally sending it to you, man.
Totally.
It's and eventually the music gets more and more disturbed. It's like memories disappearing until
Yeah.
it's pure chaos.
It sounds distressing to listen to.
It's sort of like psychological horror in the
Gosh,
form of
that's
a
hard.
music album, actually. And I would I would recommend listening to it once.
I
The
will.
first half hour of the album, I am re-listening, like, I mean, not every day, but I'm coming back to it. But
Yeah,
I wouldn't listen to it as a whole again
yeah. Too
because
distressing.
it's quite distressing. Yeah, but doing
Yeah.
it once, I would recommend that. But um,
Okay, I
the
will.
first half an hour of that album is really really chill vibe. To be honest,
Yeah.
I like that. I feel like I'm an 80-year-old man when I'm listening to that.
You are an old soul and a young body for sure.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think we both are.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think I was talking to a PhD about this, and they did correct us on one or two things, but overall they had an agreement. I'm going to get you their name actually, because I wonder if you could maybe talk to them on your channel. That might be a good thing to do.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, it is very alarming.
One final thing I really want to touch upon, and I think it's quite important, is the whole phenomenon of so-called sissy porn, which I'm 100% sure you have heard of.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where basically it's like a hypnosis form of porn, where you have this voice telling you that you are
See,
a woman because you like
yeah, I thought
dick.
this was a joke at first. Like I thought somebody was.
It's surreal. It's
I know
surreal.
it's real. Like, and then I started talking to detransitioners about it. I was like, "Have you ever heard this shit?" And they're like, "I used to listen to that." And I'm like, "What? People actually fucking listen to that?" Like, I think there was various forms of this hippie fucking sissy hypnosis, right? I think it came in. There was the pornographic element, and then there was the
Mm,
auditory element,
yeah.
and I don't think it was just one facet either. I think there's an element of it in yaoi, which is like gay men in anime, like having sex, and there's a little bit of it going on there too.
Mm,
Um, I just think it's like it is across the board, but I never listened to any of those things, and I was really surprised it was a genuine.
me too.
I honestly thought it was just a thing Tav said, right? But it wasn't a real thing.
Yeah, no, because it sounds surreal, right?
Yeah, it is.
But
It's
no,
crazy.
it's the real thing,
But it
and
also goes to show
I
that
did.
most people, sorry, it also goes to show that most people's pipelines aren't what people think they are. It's not as reductive as "Oh, it's all sissy porn. It's all pornography." It's like, nah, it's not. Like, I do know people who have like had that sissy porn experience, but say it's all of us. No, it's most of it is autism, trauma, bullying,
Yeah,
and
I would think so too. And some conservatives would put us all in one box and just think of all of us as perverts, basically. And
yes,
that is so far from the truth.
no,
Um,
I'm definitely a little bit of a
but this
pervert.
whole fucking concept of sissy porn, like this audiovisual hypnosis, I did some research on it, and by research I mean I've watched several of his videos for research purposes, of course.
Okay.
No, actually for research purposes, right? And I find it shockingly sexist. Like
Yeah, the
watching this
whole
one video, and like, you're such a loser. You like to suck dick. You are a woman. Like,
wow.
okay, is that how you perceive womanhood? Because I know
Yeah,
there was this one trans activist. I don't remember the name, but they said um, that to be, and it was someone who was promoting sissy porn basically, and they said that to be a woman is to be fucked.
I think it might have been Grace Laverne who possibly said that, or there's another one.
The name and the picture of that person will show up in the edit of the video when I find it.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
so
Cool.
let's not waste our time thinking who it was, but I find it disturbing as hell, you know. And I don't think this represents the entire trans community as a whole,
No.
because um, I I'm cool with most trans people, and I have quite good personal relationships with a lot of trans people, and I think this is quite damaging to the whole community, to be honest. And
Yeah.
it's founded in sexism towards women. And whenever I meet trans person who mentions either sissy porn or hyperpop, I
A what?
become automatically quite skeptical.
Hyper what?
It's called hyperpop. Apparently, it's a genre about being a female and sucking dick. It's a specific genre of pop. I'm no expert on that, but
Fucking hell.
I met some people who were really really into that and were trans.
But this is the
And
thing.
then you
like,
have then you have this
people-
fascination with Fallout New Vegas among some trans people for some reason.
Is that not just because it's a good game, or is there?
I have no idea. I had someone tell me that apparently it's because of the hands of the character that they're feminine or something like that. That it feels like those are your hands, sort of like channeling this idea of femininity of those hands, something like that.
That's a new one. Holy shit, I haven't heard of that one. I just thought people liked the game. God, I'm naive as fuck. Like, I really am. For somebody.
Me too, trust me.
Like, and I know I've been in weird places on the internet and I didn't even know that. Like, it just goes to show it is so varied. It's so, there's so many different things coming together.
Yeah, it's a sea, it's a one big ocean of shit that you can't really fully explore.
A big ocean of shit, yes.
Yeah, that's my definition of the internet. And honestly, I also think the internet is somehow the worst thing that has happened to humanity since alcohol, because it gets the worst traits out of us.
I am tending to agree. I think we're too, as a society, maybe a bit too young for the internet ourselves to understand. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of there is a lot of temptation to reduce everything to that single one statement, but I don't know. I think the internet has helped in some ways too, but there's definitely a lot of damage, and how much of that was intentional damage is the question.
And I think there's a tweet you posted just a couple of days ago. I know because I'm stalking you, but I think you wrote something like that everyone who has transition has something to do with sexuality.
Yeah.
That it's a big lie. That has nothing to do with sexuality.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating because just a couple of years ago, I wouldn't agree with you. But the longer I live, the more I have seen, the more I agree on that. And it can be informed, like in your case, like hidden, like closeted internal homophobia of sorts. It can be in a form of a fetishism, autogynephilia, stuff like that. It can be, like in my case, to escape sexuality because I hated my sex drive, and because I didn't see women as sexual beings, I saw the idea of being a woman as a form to escape, to go back to innocence in a way, to escape sexuality. So then again, that also has to do with sexuality.
Yeah, it's all. I don't care what anyone says. Like, so gender and sex are totally different, and sexual orientation and gender identity aren't the same. I'm like, I'm sorry, but one, they are. Why does the trans community have an overwhelmingly high representation of pornography accounts? Like, why is there so many of them into sex work? It's because that they are, a lot of them are embodying themselves as a target. There are some big. I've been on streams with some trans people, and I'm not going to say who they are. And I've been in a debate with one, and I'm talking to them, and I'm thinking, as I'm watching them, I'm like, you're looking at yourself, you're looking at your tits, you're looking at your chest, they're like this and stuff, and you're like, this is about watching yourself perform. And it's like, there is the one, and because you say sexuality, they assume, the wanking off in women's clothes and getting off. No, I'm talking about the roots in. So it could be like again, homophobia, and that absolutist autistic thinking, and maybe you've got the AGP and you're straight, whatever, and you've got trauma, or maybe you've got a combination of all of them, but no one transitions with the objective of it not having to do with anything with sex, because the whole purpose of transition is to live a fulfilling life, including a fulfilling sex life, right? And it's like the very motivation for transition isn't just your personal comfort, it's your sexual identity too. What is the problem with admitting that as well? Why is that such a social faux pas? Why can't you just say, I have a sexual motivation to be a certain way, whatever, why is that a bad thing? Why is it a bad
Yes.
thing? But no,
Yeah.
it's
So
the
you're saying
worst
it
thing
should
in
be
the
like
world.
more socially accepted as well.
Yeah, it
Uh,
should be.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying that people should be out and about to live out their fetish in
In
whatever that
public,
fetish
no.
is, but it depends. Like some people are like, you got some people on the other end of the scale who are completely voyeuristic, and they love being in a woman's toilet. They love being in a woman's changing room, and they are getting erections out in public because of that, right? And it's like, that's one extreme. But to say that's every single trans person is such a fucking lie.
No, it's
It's
actually a small minority if you
it
think
is
about it. But
yeah.
those people give trans women really bad rap, you know.
Yeah, and there's nothing trans
And the
women can
same
do
with
about it as
things
well.
like Transcels. I don't know if you've
Transcels,
heard
yeah.
of that. Those are basically incels who transition in order to get laid.
Transmaxxers, mate.
Yeah.
Transmaxxers. Yeah.
Absolutely insane if you ask me. But yeah, they think like if they become a woman, they have higher chances of scoring with women, right? And I think a
They're
lot of
also
those
open
trans
to
people on the
work.
internet who say really sexist things to women if they refuse to sleep with them are actually trans cells, and that's the big fucking problem with not having any gatekeeping in trans community. Like, hey, we accept everything. The problem is like if you accept everything in your house, be prepared that your house is going to be flooded with shit eventually.
Yeah, I like that one. No, it's true. Yeah. I like
Right.
that one.
Before we finish, would you like to say a word or two about the book you're writing?
Yeah, thank you. So I have for the last year and a bit been writing my own personal story from all it's basically, how did I get here story. How did I get to where I am now, sort of thing. And it's not psychoanalyzing anything, it's just saying, here's the things that were important to me, here's the things that I remember, here's the things that have shaped me, and then laying that out in a book, basically. So it's kind of like reading, it's weird, it was like writing a novel on a true story, but yourself is the main character. It was very, very strange. I don't know, I sent a draft to the publisher last week, actually,
Oh,
very early
wow.
last week, so I'm waiting to hear what they think. They were very enthusiastic on the very early shitty draft, and it was a shitty draft that they saw as a taster. So I'm hoping I get good feedback, and we'll see where it goes. And if nothing happens with it, nothing happens with it. Or what it was for me more than anything was
I
very
mean, you can
healing.
find different ways of publishing it as well.
I'm not mega like precious on the public. For me, it was more so the exercise was very important. Like write it all down, get it all right in me head. Um, and that
Mm.
in itself was valuable, you know?
Okay. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah. So,
'Cause, I'll probably try to publish my own book in UK as well.
yeah.
Especially since I'm
Cool.
writing it in English, and it's kind of hard to publish anything in English in Norway. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that'll be impossible. So gonna publish
Does
it in the
it
UK.
does it start like when you're writing in English and Norwegian? Is it structured very differently, or is it not? Would it not just be easy?
I mean, the grammar is quite similar.
Yeah.
Grammatically, in Norwegian and English are very similar, and there's a lot of similar words in a way.
Okay.
But
Well, good luck with that.
writing in English is like more natural for me. Same with speaking, to be honest. I'm not saying that I'm bad at Norwegian, but it just doesn't come as naturally in a way.
That's interesting. Very interesting. I've never had that problem of having to speak other
No, it's
languages.
like I'm
Apart from French.
multilingual, right? Because I speak
Yeah.
3 different languages, so
Sure.
and understand more languages than that. So
You can understand me, so there's one thing.
that's an art.
It is. It's an art, like. Right, Alex. It's been a
Right.
pleasure. I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to.
it was lovely having you over at my channel, Richie.
Yes, and now
I-
I'm dark. Look how dark it is in this place now. It started light, and
Yeah,
now it's dark. And it's like
yeah, it's a
glowing.
journey into the
in my-
darkness.
Look how gay my it's just glowing gayness here. Red, blue, green, yellow, orange, red. Hey, LGBT.
Yay.
LGB. Sorry.
Thank you for
Right. See you
coming.
soon. Bye bye. Thank you. No, thank
Yeah.
you very much for having us on. I'll see you soon.
Yeah.